Mindig cipőfőzöm. Mindig cipőfőzöm. A cipőfőző főzelék. És azt hiszem, igen, is tanult magyar nyelvet. És az inspiráció nekem. Kell menni güdülő városba. Főváros, belváros. Liszt Ferenc. Or as I call him, Frankie Flower. How you doing, Frankie? Chinos vagy. Fucking Liszt Ferenc. What a guy. What a guy. Kölcsi Ferenc utca. Az egy szem férfi. Kölcsi Ferenc.
Welcome back to another edition of Csütörtök Éjszaka Történet Idő, Thursday night story time. I'm here with my good friend. You all know him, you all love him. Bob Talmash, Tommy Dean. How you doing, Tom?
Hello. Good to be here. Thank you for having me. And we're also calling this, was it Suit Podcast?
It's a Suit Podcast. It's a Suit Podcast.
I didn't
I've
get
got
the
my
memo.
suit on. Might as well unbutton the little button now, get loosened up a bit. The jacket will come off soon enough.
Looks beautiful. I think it's got to stay.
Maybe the shirt as well. What do you got here? Tom has brought some delicious looking natural wine from Homoki Dorka. It's a pétnat formint harslevelű 2020.
Does it say where that's made? Because I was going to say something, but I think I'm going to be wrong.
It says Felső Magyarországi. So that's like Upper Hungary.
Right. I think it's in...
Slovakia?
No, I think it's maybe near Slovakia. So this is a throwback to the first episode that we recorded here in the studio. And I think it was this bottle.
Will you do the honors and open it up? I
to.
remember in the first episode we ever had, Tom popped open a bottle of natural wine and it exploded all over the place. So,
whoa.
Moment of truth. I've given him like a tuna can opener.
Yeah, what is this? What is this? I don't even know if...
That's literally for tuna fish. Hey, let me get it. Let me get it.
I got it.
Oh! My beautiful books. These are priceless artifacts.
All right, as intended.
As promised. As prophesied. As expected. As promised. We have a disaster on the table. Hundreds of
good
years
thing I wore my white pants.
worth of
Good
literature
thing I wore my white pants.
is ruined. We were basically begging for it, and it happened.
Well, we can say this much. This bottle is reliably bubbly.
It's reliably bubbly, pungent, fermented. We've had a little bit of a disaster.
All right, starting off strong.
It was much worse. The next bottle we shall have to open up with, what do they call those things? HVAC suits on.
HVAC. Yep. I've
HVAC,
got one in my bag.
Knick-knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone.
And the rest goes...
The rest goes where the rest goes. So I'm glad that you are all still with us, bearing with us on this wonderful Thursday night here in Budapest as we deal with explosive objects.
Yep.
How do you say explosion in Hungarian? It's like rabon? Rabon? Yeah.
Rabon.
I looked that up because we had a guy cleaning out the chimney the other day, and I was trying to ask him if it would explode all over the place.
The chimney, I don't know. At our first fight, I swear the chimney sweeps, the chimney men, chimney people must have some kind of like very well-renowned reputation in Hungary because they have these cool little stickers, like a little guy carrying a little chimney box or whatever, and they're everywhere. And I always see them around the neighborhood, and I was like, that's a very cute little thing, and never knew what to think. And then one day, I just got the phone rang like a ton of times, and I was working, and I was like, answered it. Some guy kept yelling at me in Hungarian, and I was like, bro, I don't know what you're saying. So I didn't let him in. And then I just heard it ringing all throughout the apartment. And finally somebody let him in, and he came upstairs and like banged on the door. And he came in like a very nice like worker outfit, and he had the stickers all over his like Carhartts. And I was like, oh, you're the chimney guy. And he was like, yes. And then he did some stuff. And I was like, oh, if there weren't stickers everywhere, I would not trust you. But now I trust him.
Here's to the Hungarian Chimney Guys and their stickers.
Exactly. And to some...
Egészségetekre.
It's a natural wine, no sulfates.
Érdekes. It's very citrusy, gyümölcsös, a lot of nice strong notes of elderberries and
Explosions.
Explosions. It feels like we're walking through the springtime, even though it's towards the tail end of fall. So the point that we're here for is to read some fine literature. We've got a variety of books. Actually, most of them survived the explosion, as well as most of the valuable ones, which is a good sign. We've got King Arthur. This is some Hungarian history, but we'll keep that on the side. King Arthur and His Knights. Beautiful 1930s edition. We've done some reading from there in the past. Speeches That Changed the World. Nelson Mandela. Nagyon Csinos. Nagyon Jó. Nagyon Érdekes. Nagyon Ügyes Férfi. The Lost Rider. Hungarian poetry. Always a good warm-up. Actually, I did want to read one poem in particular for you, and I was wondering if I read the Hungarian, if you would respond to me in English with the English translation.
I would be delighted to read in English and not in Hungarian.
Okay, cool. So it's Adi Endre, The Lost Rider, Az Eltévedt Lovas. And actually the title of this book is The Lost Rider, a bilingual anthology of Hungarian poems. If you're watching out there in the wide world, comment section, tell us what you'd like to hear, what you'd like to read, what you'd like to see. Talk with Willie now, www.budapest.fm/Willie. And here we have The Lost Rider. I actually memorized the first verse last night. So, Vak ügetését hallani. Eltévedt hajdani lovasnak, volt erdők és ó nádasok, láncolt lelkei riadoznak. Hol fotokban imít álmot, ő sűrűből bozott, rekedt meg. Most hirtelen téli mesék, rémei kielevenedtek. Itt van a sűrű, a bozott, itt van a régi tompa nota, mely a süket ködben lapult, vitéz busz, nagyapa, ink óta. Kísértetes nálunk az ősz, s fogjatkozott számú az ember, s a dom kerítéses síkon, küld gúbában jár a november. Erdővel, nádal, pőre, sík, bennütetti hirtelen újra, novemberes küldös magát, múlt századok küldebe bújva. Csupa verzés, csupa titok, csupa nyomások, csupa ősök, csupa erdők és nádasok, csupa hajdani eszellősök. Hajdani eltévedt udás, vág néki új hínárú útnak, de nincsen fény, nincs lámpaláng, és híruk sincsen a faluknak. Alusznak némán, a faluk mutat álmodván, dideregve, s a ködbozottból kirohan, ordas büllén, s nagymergő medve. Vak ügetését hallani, hajdani eltévedt lovasnak, vak erdők, volt erdők és a nadosok. Láncolt lelkei riadoznak. 1914, the eve of World War I, 1914. Adi Endre. Just read the first couple verses there. Or if you want to go through the whole thing, feel free. But
Let's see. The Lost Rider by Endre Ágy. Lost and ancient the horseman rides, blind the trot of the horse's feet. Of the forest that was, of the reeds that waved, the fettered spirits start at their beat. Where the trees of the silent past brooded still in the checkered shade, on a sudden the shapes of a winter's tale leap to life in the listening glade. See?
well, that's amazing that you just said the winter's tale there, because I was thinking earlier about this idea of winter tales. And this poem is actually very fitting. Let me see this for a second. It says here, Erdővel nádal pőre sík, bennütetti hirtelen újra, novemberes ködös magát, múlt századok küldebe bújva. Suddenly, strangely, the plain anew, clothed with rushes and woodlands green, its limbs of November, its limbs of fog, and hides in the mist of the years that have been. So it's very fitting for November, actually, because it's talking about, I hear the limbs of November, and there's like a thought about trees, because the trees in November, all the leaves shake off. Have you noticed that? Like, I'm sure now in Maria Romete, you've seen a lot of transition with the leaves.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think makes sense, the limbs of November, because as the leaves get shed is the first time you're greeted with the branches for a long time. So you're like, whoa, my God, I forgot that's how the structure of trees work. And then in the middle of the winter, or like, in January, February, it's not new anymore. So it's just like, yeah, that's a tree. It's got branches. But in November, it's like a surprise. It's like, hey.
Do you like November as a month? I know you're an October baby.
Yeah, I think fall to me is a difficult season to not like. I mean, it can be, but because it can take with one hand, or give with one hand and take with the other, because the weather's very temperamental. You can have beautiful fall days where it's amazing to go outside and have a little brisk balmy weather, but you can also be shocked with an early taste of winter and you're not quite fully dressed, so you can get really ripped apart by that. But I love the colors of fall. Can't be beaten.
The colors are amazing. I mean, really, it's like a Technicolor paradise out there with the yellows and the oranges and the reds.
Technicolor? What does that mean?
I think Technicolor was actually like what they started to do in like the 60s and 70s with color television. It was like called Technicolor. It was like actually a brand.
Oh, okay.
But I think it became to mean just like a very vibrant color scheme. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I use a lot of things very incorrectly, so I could be off there.
It's also, I mean, like maybe this is a trite thing to say, but if you really do like look at the leaves and everything, it's really cool that I mean, with all things in nature, it's not like black, it's not binary, it's not black and white. Like each of the leaves have a different amount of like pigmentation and like different amount of yellow, orange, reddish, and it's just a very fluid image.
I've been noticing that also, like, you think like, okay, October is the most beautiful because all the leaves are beautiful on the trees and you see this vibrant colorscape and it's so gorgeous. But then I noticed today, like all the trees are bare and it's pretty ugly. Well, it depends what your perspective is. Frog in my throat again. But the ground becomes like crazy. The ground becomes crazy.
I think you're saying because the ground becomes all colorful like the trees.
Yeah.
I was realizing when I was walking yesterday or the other day is that because we have like a little forest trail near our house and there's just a bunch of leaves on the ground, and now they're just it's not beautiful at all. It's just like mud. Like the leaves are just melding in with the mud. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. They're going back into the ground and they're going to become the leaves of next year because they're going to go nourish the ground, going to go in the roots. And that's like those nutrients are going to go back and just become leaves again. It's a crazy cycle to see the leaves being like decaying.
Actually, here's a good question for you. Are you supposed to rake your leaves in your lawn? Is that an aesthetic thing, or does it actually provide more nutrients to give the grass a little bit more leaf?
Probably, I would think. I mean, yeah, common sense makes me think that, yeah, it would probably be better for the lawn if you left the leaves there to like to feed the ground. But yeah, I mean, you mow your grass as well, which...
What say you, rake or not to rake? That is the question. But we were having a debate about this because it seems like, why is everyone doing it? Is it just because it looks bad? Because it doesn't actually look bad, is the thing. Or people are just hardos about their lawns and they want to have
it looks pretty good. If you have a lawn covered in leaves and
that's
then
what
you
I'm
rake
saying.
It up. But no, it looks really good once you rake it up and you have a lawn, like a fresh lawn. It's pretty beautiful. I mean, the leaves...
Yeah. Maybe also because like now the leaves look nice because they've just fallen and they're beautiful and they're colorful and they're yellow, but then in a few weeks they're going to be brown and
they become rotten.
They become rotten.
Yeah.
No good rotten leaves.
No good rotten leaves.
Bloody fucking rotten leaves. Do you remember Chef's Choice back in Middlebury?
Yeah, Chef's Choice, my favorite. I still use it today, maybe in not so many words, but...
What is Chef's Choice? Just like pick what
chef. It's up to the chef. Somebody asks you like, "Hey, I'm going to the grocery store or going to the convenience store. Where you want something to drink?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Chef's Choice."
All right, Chef's Choice. Which of these next sticky volumes would you like to read next?
Dude, I was eyeing this when I came in. I want to read this. This is like the
Grimm's fairy tales.
The Grimm fairy tale, right? This is like proper fairy tales that are scary.
Yeah, they're pretty. I mean, there's a variety in here. Some of them are ending very abruptly and like. They're all very weird.
And the children's heads got chopped off.
My God. It's going to be a little bit hard to pass it back and forth, but do you want me to read one and then we can discuss it afterwards?
I'm also interested in reading something from Siddhartha.
Why don't you read the passage after I read a Grimm's fairy tales? So you can read a Siddhartha passage. So we got some Grimm's fairy tales, Tunde Meshek. A lot of choices here. Speaking of, I remember I did this. I wrote, when I read it the first time, the lesson that you learn at the end of it. So this one, the Frog Prince, keep your word and you will be rewarded.
Good lesson.
Or we have another choice. We can read The Adventures of Chanticleer and Partlet.
Do you have the lesson that you learned in that
No
one?
lesson there.
I like the keep your word. It's a good one.
Okay.
Are you going to read the whole thing?
Let's see how long this one is. Some of them are longer than others.
That was 2 page turns. That's a lot.
Cat and mouse in partnership. Greedy cats win everything in the end. That is the way of the world. That one's only 1.5 pages.
I'd be curious. So that was your take on it? That
Yeah.
cats win everything?
Greedy cats win everything in the end. That is the way of the world. The cat and mouse in partnership.
Sounds interesting.
A certain cat had made the acquaintance of a mouse and had said so much to her about the great love and friendship she felt for her, that at length the mouse agreed that they should live and keep house together. "But we must make a provision for winter, or else we shall suffer from hunger," said the cat. "And you, little mouse, cannot venture everywhere, or you will be caught in a trap some day." The good advice was followed, and a pot of fat, a pot of gir, was bought. But they did not know where to put it. At length, after much consideration, the cat said, "I know no place where it will be better stored up than in the church, for no one dares take anything away from there. We will set it beneath the altar and not touch it until we are really in need of it." So the pot was placed in safety, but it was not long before the cat had a great yearning for it and said to the mouse, "I want to tell you something, little mouse. My cousin has brought a little son into the world and has asked me to be godmother. He is white with brown spots, and I am to hold him over the font at the christening. Let me go out today, and you look after the house by yourself." "Yes, yes," answered the mouse. "By all means go, and if you get anything good to eat, think of me. I should like a drop of sweet red christening wine myself." All this, however, was untrue. The cat had no cousin, and had not been asked to be godmother. She went straight to the church, stole the pot of fat, began to lick at it, and licked the top of the fat off. Then she took a walk upon the roofs of the town, looked out for opportunities, and then stretched herself in the sun and licked her lips whenever she thought of the pot of fat. And not until it was evening did she return home. "Well, here you are again," said the mouse. "No doubt you have had a merry day." "All went off well," answered the cat. "What name did they give the child?" "Top Off," said the cat quite coolly. "Top Off!" cried the mouse. "That is a very odd and uncommon name. Is it a usual one in your family?" "What does that matter?" said the cat. It is no worse than Crumb Stealer, as your godchildren are called." Before long, the cat was seized by another fit of yearning. She said to the mouse, "You must do me a favor, and once more manage the house for a day alone. I am again asked to be godmother, and as the child has a white ring about its neck, I cannot refuse." The good mouse consented, but the cat crept behind the town walls to the church and devoured half the pot of fat. "Nothing ever seems so good as what one keeps to oneself," said she, and was quite satisfied with her day's work. When she went home, the mouse inquired, "And what was the child christened?" "Half Done," answered the cat. "Half Done? What are you saying? I have never heard the name in my life. I'll wager anything that it is not in the calendar." The cat's mouth soon began to water for some more licking. "All good things go in threes," said she. "I am asked to stand godmother again. The child is quite black, only it has white paws, but with that exception, it has not a single white hair on its whole body. This only happens once every few years. You will let me go, won't you?" "Top Off, Half Done," answered the mouse. "They are such odd names that they make me very thoughtful." "You sit at home," said the cat, "in your dark gray fur coat and long tail, and are filled with fancies. That's because you do not go out in the daytime. During the cat's absence, the mouse cleaned the house and put it in order. But the greedy cat entirely emptied the pot of fat. When everything is eaten up, one has some peace, said she to herself. And well filled and fat, she did not return home until night. The mouse at once asked what name had been given to the third child. It will not please you more than the others, said the cat. He is called All Gone. All Gone, cried the mouse. That is the most suspicious name of all. I have never seen it in print. All Gone, what can that mean? And she shook her head, curled herself up, and lay down to sleep. From this time forth, no one invited the cat to be godmother. But when the winter had come and there was no longer anything to be found outside, the mouse thought of their provision and said, Come, cat, we will go to our pot of fat which we have stored up for ourselves. We shall enjoy that. Yes, answered the cat. You will enjoy it as much as you would enjoy sticking that dainty tongue of yours out of the window. They set out on their way. But when they arrived, the pot of fat certainly was in its place, but it was empty. Alas, said the mouse, now I see what has happened. Now it comes to light. You are a true friend. You have devoured all when you were standing godmother. First top off, then half done, then... Will you hold your tongue? Cried the cat. One word more and I will eat you too. Oh, God, was already on the poor mouse's lips. Scarcely had she spoken it before the cat sprang on her, seized her, and swallowed her down. Verily, that is the way of the world.
Oh my God. Brutal. Amazing is exactly what I wanted out of that. Great.
Grim.
Grim. Very grim.
Is that why we say grim? Maybe that's why we say something is grim. Because it's like pretty fucking grim.
Really? I think they might just have really fortunate names. Maybe. Or maybe they just started writing really sad story tales when they got teased as young.
Oh, we have Maria Gyuric, Szépestét nektek. Good evening to you all. Good evening to you, Maria.
Good evening. I think this is the artist, no?
This is the artist. This is the artist.
Love your art. It's beautiful.
We got a...
Thank you.
Sharga-ish Barna over Tom's shoulder. We got a cake.
I love this
my
one.
Shoulder.
It's my favorite.
You will walk out of here with that painting.
Yeah, I might. if it suits you. And if there's not already a buyer, it's mine. I would like it.
So what do you think of that whole story with the cat and the mouse? So basically, as I understand it, the cat has to go be godmother or something, and there's always a pot of fat, and she's supposed to bring it back for the mouse for their winter storage, but she ends up just eating it, and at the end, she eats the mouse too?
Yeah, not sure what the meaning of that story is, but yeah, I mean, that's the nutshell. I love the voice of the mouse, by the way. You've definitely made it a very submissive character. Yeah, the cat's a sleazebag. Nice that the cat, for some reason I liked that were they friends or were they having some kind of like marital relationship? Because if that was the case, I liked that the woman was like absolutely in power.
Yeah, that's interesting, cool. Actually. I didn't even think about that. They definitely have some sort of relationship where they live together, this cat and this mouse.
I think they were friends, though, but I'm not sure. It was unclear.
Well, it says it's a partnership.
Right.
And that's actually a word that I was discussing with, I think it was my mom the other day, about the idea of saying that someone is your partner. In America, that usually connotates, at least in the past, I think times are sort of changing with this a little bit, but it usually traditionally connotated a homosexual relationship. And I think that's probably because you couldn't legally call someone your husband or your wife, so you had to refer them to your partner. I mean, of course, you can do whatever you want, but I think that's probably where it was generated. But in other parts of the world, partner is very common. Like in England, people call their spouse their partner all the time.
I think it makes sense. I mean, it's a lot easier of a word to like say in mixed company in general. Like I think where you're going with this is I think it means more as well.
Oh, what do you think about this? The word moaning. Like in America,
yeah,
it usually connotates like a woman having an orgasm.
Well, yeah, it can.
But in England, to have a moan is like to complain about something.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So my question for you, are English people sexually attracted to complaining? Or are Americans really terrible at sex?
You put me in a pickle. I think Americans probably just are like too sexually overstimulated and just like relating everything to sexual things for no reason. I was listening to a really funny clip from Stephen Fry.
Oh yeah,
about British comedy and like what the British comedian is, and he was just saying that the American comedian, like I'm gonna butcher it, but in general the American comedian it's like the super cool person, super smooth, comes in and drops really nice punchlines, and like everybody's kind of looking at the American comedian and it's like, oh my God, they're so cool, and like how did they drop such a nice punchline? Oh, I'm laughing, and like they're so cool. And the British comedian is someone who's like very much like they are the punchlines, like they're sad and like sort of depressed, and like you're laughing at them and they're like building the joke out of their like misgivings and misfortune and stuff like that. And I think that might go to the moaning thing, where that they're just maybe more comfortable with this, like the sad, or like they're more upfront with the.
Yeah, no, it's true, because it could become like, to have a moaning, it's almost like a funny thing. It's like you're bitching and you're moaning, bitching and moaning, but like you're doing it in a way that like no one's really, they don't feel that bad for you. It's just like, oh, he's having a moan.
Yeah.
But in America,
I like that. It's like whining. Yeah,
it's whining.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a moany, or like I've heard this before. Like, oh, he's a moany fucker. Like he just likes to like sit at the pub and moan. And
yeah.
You ever want to be? Do you ever want to be like one of those guys that just sits at the bar all day and has a moan?
Absolutely. I was just in Oxford and I just wanted to like go sit and just.
Oh yeah, tell me about that. Speaking of England, how was Oxford?
It was a crazy place, like unbelievably beautiful, and it's hard for me because there was at one point I was in a maybe my favorite like little story. I was just walking around after working, trying to like clear my head and just enjoy the place because I was working during the weekdays. And I walked into a pub that Maddie Poulton recommended me, the Bear.
Maddie Poulton, out there in the audience. We know you watch every episode, Maddie.
We know you're here. He recommended me to go to the Bear, and he was like, "It's a tiny place, too small for you, but you can stoop, but you can stoop and have a beer there, or something like that." So I went, got a classic cask ale where they pump it out.
Oh, nice,
flat little ale, beautiful. And as I was sitting alone at my little table in this tiny bar, the barkeep started a little fire. Oh, beautiful, amazing. Just inside. I think for some reason in a city, like starting a little fire, just this is a very romantic idea for me. And then some crazy man just comes up to me. So first of all, I walked past, going to the bar, walked past a crazy man just peeing on the street, which was not something that I saw. That was the only time I saw it. And he was nuts. And then walked into the bar, and then that crazy man walked in behind me. And after I ordered my beer, he was like, "What's up, man?" And tried to shake my hand, and I was like, "Dude, all due respect, I'm not shaking your hand. I just saw you like peeing all over yourself." And I just kind of turned away and walked away. First, kind of the crazy person. Then I was drinking my beer alone, listening to my book, and then another crazy person just started talking to me, but this guy didn't pee on himself, so I entertained the idea, and he was talking to me all about, he's a metal detector. He was in Oxford doing metal detecting to try and find old coins.
That's crazy, because I also once met a crazy British metal detector in Cornwall. But tell me more about this guy.
I mean, this guy was just like, "Yeah, I'm a metal detector. You know what that is?" I was like, "Yeah, you go look for weird metal. It's kind of cool." And he was like, "Yeah, I found this coin, all this bullshit." And then he kept accusing me because once I told him I was American, he was like, "Oh, okay, so you don't like history." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, you don't have any history, so like you probably hate it here." And I was like, "We have some history. It's just not really like there's a lot of Native American history, or like whatever before Europeans came. There's a lot of beautiful history about what was going on with that culture, and it's kind of sad that it's destroyed now." But then he kept trying to tell me, like, kept bringing up history and just being like, "Yeah, but you must not like it because you don't have any." And I was like, "Why are you accusing me of such things?" And I was like, "My friend is a historian. He's an American historian."
I'm an American historian. I'm history. That means like I'm old news. Mm-hmm.
But one thing he was asking me is like how I like Oxford because there's so much history. And I was like, "Yeah, well, I live in Budapest, which also has history." But what I couldn't put my finger on is the difference. So history is, there's a lot of history as you're walking through Budapest. You see old buildings, beautiful. But when I was in Oxford, it was a completely like viscerally different experience, the history there. And I'm not sure. Have you been to Oxford? Or maybe
I've never been to Oxford. I've been to Cambridge a couple of times, and I believe they're fairly similar.
Yeah.
I was actually in Cambridge with you once.
Right.
But Cambridge and I think Oxford, and I saw some of your pictures, very lovely pictures. it has like this sort of uniformity of aesthetic to it, where like everything maybe not completely looks the same. Like I'm sure you have some like new buildings as well, but like you have a street with like this row of like Georgian era, Victorian era houses, and they all kind of like go together and they sort of fit like romantically. Whereas like Budapest is like this like chaotic like mishmash of different eras, and like you have these beautiful early 15th century buildings maybe not 15th century, but for the most part like very early buildings, but then that's like juxtaposed with modern not skyscrapers, but like modern buildings, and then panel houses, and it's sort of all jumbled together, and it's a little bit dirty and gritty, and I like it. That's something that I like about Budapest, is that it's just this like clusterfuck of chaos. But I think Oxford is a little bit more, maybe it looks historical in a way. You can see it in like the pages of a book or something.
Sure. And it's much older. I mean, like, I think they also like have all the buildings are much shorter. Like there's nothing higher than like a 2-story building unless it's like a steeple, which also is like a bit of a difference from here. Like you were saying with panel houses, like there's a lot of like 5-6 story, like, and the stories are massive as well.
But also interesting because Budapest, as far as big European capitals go, is a short capital. Like, well, Europe in general has less height than most places in America, let's say, or China, for instance. But even so, I think in like Madrid or London or Frankfurt or Berlin or Vienna, there's like a few more tall buildings. Budapest has obviously the Parliament and St. Istvan's Basilica, tallest buildings in the city. Nothing's allowed to be built higher than that, 96 meters.
Do you know how tall the basilica, or not the basilica, the Parliament is? And do you know what it represents?
96 meters.
Do you know what it represents? Or like what it's
896, the Honfoglalás is the year that the Hungarians stormed into the Carpathian Basin.
Oh, amazing. I mean, I thought it's like the amount of meters is the same amount of kilometers to the old Hungarian capital, apparently.
That might also be true.
I don't know. That was sold to me on a tour, but you can never trust those tour guides. I don't know.
But it was interesting because in 1896, and that's when Parliament was completed, I think a few years after that, like 1904. But it's supposed to be 1896 as well as St. Istvan's Basilica.
Do you know that the Parliament is heated by geothermal air? Like the same thermal air that heats the bathhouses in Budapest? Like
really?
They use, back in the day, they were like channeling the thermal air from that shit through the building, which is what keeps it hot. And now it's become synthetic heating, but they use the same like ducting system that they originally built it for.
That's wild.
Insane.
Geothermal energy in Budapest. Who knew?
Who knew?
Who knew?
It's the future.
So you want to read that Siddhartha passage that you had picked out?
Sure, but I couldn't actually. Now I'm not really sure what I picked out. So Siddhartha is a story, which I'm not. So I've tried to explain this before. Siddhartha is the name of a Buddha, or of one of the like famous.
I'm pretty sure that Siddhartha was the original name of like the guy that like is revered as the Buddha.
Okay.
Is that maybe not true?
Yeah, so then I also thought this was about him, but it's not. This German guy, Hermann Hesse, just kind of like wrote a story and called it Siddhartha, which seems very presumptive to me. And it's just fictional. It's just a made up story.
Right.
About a shamana. And a shamana, which is an interesting concept, is basically just like a chosen homeless person, like someone who chooses to be homeless,
like an ascetic.
Yeah, and they just walk around without a home, without money. They just like try to like survive, like not eat, and they just try to meditate and like not go crazy. Basically.
It's like a glorified homeless person.
Yeah, and so this story, in a nutshell, I mean, you've read it, right?
Yeah, I've read Siddhartha.
So I think, as I understand it, so correct me if I'm wrong, it's just like a man's journey through enlightenment, sort of. He like starts as a true shamana. He like has everything. He has a family. He could go to school. He learns to read, all this kind of stuff, and then he tells his dad when he's 18, he's like, "Hey man, I'm going to become a shaman." And his dad's like, "Oh my god, that's not cool. But if it's what you want, do it." And then he leaves, and then he becomes a shamana, and then he realizes that just like being homeless and not eating isn't enough, and he goes through like trying to become a completely enlightened religious person, finding out that's not what he wants, and then he goes and becomes like a merchant and like gets caught up in capitalism, and then he goes back to being sort of a shamana, and he ends up being enlightened in the end. He like goes through all the different extremes of life, sort of, in the different parts of the book.
What they say in the back, Siddhartha, a handsome Brahmin son, is clever and well-loved, yet increasingly dissatisfied with the life that is expected of him. Setting out on a spiritual journey to discover a higher state of being, his quest leads him through the temptations of luxury and wealth, the pleasures of sensual love, and the sinister threat of death-dealing snakes, until eventually he comes to a river. There, a ferryman guides him towards his destiny and to the ultimate meaning of existence.
Cool. So there's two passages that I saved. I was looking for one, which is where Siddhartha says, and this is one of my favorite, like little tiny pieces of the book, which I'm just going to read. It's 8 words, and then I'll go back to when he first meets the ferryman, because he meets the ferryman at the beginning of the book.
Let's hear these 8 words.
Okay.
So.
Well, he's being asked, like, what can you do? Like, because he's trying to become a merchant, and he just says, I can think, I can wait, I can fast.
I can think, I can wait, I can fast.
And with those 3 things, he becomes basically like the king of his little empire, with just being able to think, wait, and fast.
Lehet gondoni, lehet várni, lehet nem tudom. How do you say fast? Nemeni.
Nem.
How do you say fast in Hungarian? Who knows?
Lányok nem. So what do you think of that? Think that fascinated me. Being able to think, wait, and fast.
Think, wait, and fast. Think, wait, and fast. I can think, I can wait, I can fast. I can think, I can wait, I can fast.
I think it's fascinating because it's just like he basically has discipline. He has discipline because he can fast, and he has patience because he can wait, and he's intelligent because he can think. So with patience, intelligence,
and what is he saying
discipline.
That in response to?
So this is when he meets. This is the sexually charged part of the story. He meets
a prostitute.
Yes. Let me find out. So he first sees her, this is right after he's like, okay, I'm not being a shamana anymore. This is silly. I'm going to go try and do some stuff. And he comes into the town and he sees her in her beautiful grove. And he's like, I can't go in like this. I'm still a shamana, he thought, still an ascetic and a beggar. I cannot remain one. I cannot enter the grove like this. And he laughed. He inquired from the first people that he met about the grove and the woman's name, and learned that it was the grove of Kamala, the well-known courtesan, and that besides the grove she owned a house in the town. Then he entered the town. He had only one goal, pursuing it. He surveyed the town, wandering about in the maze of streets, stood still in places, and rested on the stone steps to the river. Towards evening, he made friends with the barber's assistant, whom he had seen working in the shade of an arch. He found him again at prayer in the temple of Vishnus, where he related to him stories about Vishnus and Lakshmi. During the night, he slept among the boats on the river, and early in the morning, before the first customers arrived at the shop, he had his beard shaved off by the barber's assistant. He still had his chair combed and rubbed with fine oil. Then he went to bathe in the river. When the beautiful Kamala was approaching her grove late in the afternoon, in her seated chair, Siddhartha was at the entrance. He bowed and received the courtesan's greeting. He beckoned the servant who was still in the procession and asked him to announce to his mistress that a young Brahmin desired to speak to her. After a time, the servant returned, asked Siddhartha to follow him, conducted him silently into a pavilion where Kamala lay on a couch, and left him. "Did you not stand outside yesterday and greet me?" asked Kamala. "Yes, indeed. I saw you yesterday and greeted you." "But did you not have a beard and long hair yesterday, and dust in your hair? You have observed well. You have seen everything. You have seen Siddhartha, the Brahmin's son, who left his home in order to become a shamana, and who was a shamana for 3 years. Now, however, I have left that path and I have come to this town, and the first person I met before I reached the town was you. I have come here to tell you, O Kamala, that you are the first woman to whom Siddhartha has spoken without lowered eyes. Never again will I lower my eyes when I meet a beautiful woman.
Nice. I like that a lot. Never again will I lower my eyes when I meet a beautiful woman. When I beat a beautiful woman.
Oh, the grim tales are back. The grim.
Not funny. Not funny. So, and then in response to that, he says, I can think, I can wait, I can fast.
So he's going to Kamala for...
I'm also, while you're reading this, I'm just imagining that the woman he's meeting is Kamala Harris.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. Every time I read Kamala. I thought it was Kamala, but then Kamala Harris.
Kamala. Actually, I was listening.
So this is, I mean, shall I continue? Because she answers your question, but go ahead.
No. Continue, please.
So Kamala smiled and played with her fan made of peacock's feathers and asked, is that all that Siddhartha has come to tell me? I have come to tell you this and to thank you because you are so beautiful. And if it does not displease you, Kamala, I would like to ask you to be my friend and teacher, for I do not know anything of the art of which you are a mistress.
Oh, wow.
Thereupon Kamala laughed aloud. So he basically asked her to teach him the art of love, because he basically like put that by the wayside. He agreed to never do it as a shaman.
And also, so he showed up to her like whatever courtesan's den, her place of doing her profession, the world's oldest profession, prostitution. And he shows up there and he's like a Brahmin son, but he's on this path towards being some sort of weird homeless monk that's ascetic and is leading this life of fasting, and he has a tangled beard and long hair, and she sees him and he doesn't look at her and all this stuff. And then the next day he comes back with a fresh haircut and is like, please teach me how to have sex. I want to be your friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's I'm almost fearful to read this part, which I probably won't.
Do you want me to read it?
Sure. So yeah, he says that, like, yeah, that's what he's here for, and she's like, yeah, but you're not prepared, but you should start from here.
I want to know what you're fearful about.
I understand very well. So this is after she tells him, like, hey, you don't look good enough. You can't. You have dirty clothes.
So, do you know now, Samana from the woods? Do you understand? He must have. Kamala laughed and said, he's not yet good enough. He must have fine clothes and shoes. I understand very well, cried Siddhartha. How could I fail to understand when it comes from such a mouth? Your mouth is like a freshly cut fig, Kamala. My lips are also red and fresh, and will fit yours well, you will see. But tell me, fair Kamala, are you not at all afraid of the Samana from the forest, who has come to learn about love? Why should I be afraid of a Samana, a stupid Samana from the forest, who comes from jackals and does not know anything about women? Oh, the Samana is strong and afraid of nothing. He could force you, fair maiden. He could rob you. He could hurt you. No, Samana, I am not afraid. Has a Samana or a Brahmin ever feared that someone could come and strike him and rob him of his knowledge, of his piety, of his power for depth of thought? No. Because they belong to himself, and he can only give of them what he wishes. And if he wishes, that is exactly how it is with Kamala and with the pleasures of love. Fair and red are Kamala's lips, but try to kiss them against Kamala's will, and not one drop of sweetness will you obtain from them, although they know well how to give sweetness. You are an apt pupil, Siddhartha. So learn also this. One can beg, buy, be presented with, and find love in the streets, but it can never be stolen. You have misunderstood. Yes, it would be a pity if a fine young man like you misunderstood. Siddhartha bowed and smiled. You are right, Kamala. It would be a pity. It would be a very great pity. No drops of sweetness must be lost from your lips, nor from mine. So Siddhartha will come again when he has what he is lacking in: clothes, shoes, money. But tell me, fair Kamala, can you not give me a little advice? Advice? Why not? Who would not willingly give advice to a poor, ignorant Samana who comes from the jackals in the forest? Dear Kamala, where can I go in order to obtain these 3 things as quickly as possible? My friend, many people want to know that. You must do what you have learned and obtain money, clothes and shoes for it. A poor man cannot obtain money otherwise. I can think. I can wait. I can fast. So that's what we were waiting for.
Yeah, nice.
For him
Thanks
to
for
be-
taking us through.
Thinking, waiting, and fasting.
It's a fun book. Really fun book. Thought-provoking.
This is Hermann Hesse, I assume.
I
This,
guess.
like, sort of like, how do you feel just from this picture, this portrait? What do you think?
When I read more about the author after reading this guy, I was disappointed
Why?
because I thought it was a much more like it had much more depth. Like the story was like very true and honest, and it just seems like this guy is like creating, because the intro is by Paulo Coelho, the guy who wrote The Alchemist, who is like renowned for being sort of a bullshitter, basically just like kind of a nonsense writer and just like bullshit. And so I kind of put them in the same camp. So I mean, I enjoy what they're saying, and I think that they are thought-provoking, but yeah, there's some sediment in that. So it has a little bit, not as much depth or I don't know, weight. It's not as dense as I.
Well, let's see. This is what, Marco, he's been on the pod before, and he gave this book to Alexa and said, with a quote, "And everything together, all voices, all goals, all learning, all suffering, all pleasure, all that was good and evil, all of this together was the flow."
Of events.
Was the flow of events, was the music of life. And that's a quote I think he took from the book. And here's a quote from Marco. My favorite book, to my favorite Hungarian girl. Happy birthday. A bit in delay. But this is
Marco.
Tub la Kika. Okay.
Very good, very good. Marco gives great gifts. Marco gives incredibly good gifts.
Yeah, he gave me an amazing Liverpool shirt once, like the green and blue, and
He gave me a Hungarian built puzzle, which is just like a coffee table puzzle. You're supposed to make the shape be like one continuous shape. And I literally asked my family, because we do like a whatever Secret Santa. Those are the gifts we do for Christmas. We only do one gift. One person gets, and every time I'm always like, give me a puzzle, like give me something. And he didn't even know that, but he got me a puzzle. So Marco
can read minds.
Yeah, he's just a very good gift giver. Some people
Great
have
gift
that.
giver.
Some
Great
people
gift
have
giver.
that quality.
And now he has like 20 people visiting him a week from. He's given so many great gifts that he's been cursed by like his affability and his friendliness of just always having to host people in Budapest.
Cursed, dude. He needs to read more of these grim fairy tales.
All right, I think we got about 10 minutes left. What say you? Should we pop this open?
Should we do it here in risk of
No, I think
another
we
explosion?
We already got the shock once. Lexi, could you come over and here? Come into the camera also.
It's maybe in a safer place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
That was a trick.
Does the trick.
What other kind of books do we have here? I read through this. I thought it was going to be a crazy Roman epic, and it's just your notebook.
Yeah, this is I got this. It's like some. Whoopa! Watch out. Okay, these natural wines are just. Put it in the sink.
What's wrong with these ones, huh?
Oh dear.
It's still better here than on the camera.
All right. Well, this is my crazy
Sorry, Ray. Sorry,
lunatic
Ray.
ramblings. Watch out, Tom's comes in the
We'll clean
apartment.
it, we'll clean
You're gonna have bugs here for months. This is do you want this is crazy actually. So this is like what I'm doing now in my English lessons, and I just write down the words for the students of our conversation. So here are like the words from one of my students.
Cheers.
Thank you, Alexa.
Thank you,
Sorry for the
Shakira.
explosion.
It makes great radio, these explosions.
Yes. So and how much of this are you learning from our mutual Hungarian teacher? How much of your process are you stealing from Orsi, if she's listening?
Well, I would say quite a bit actually, but it's also in the way that like our lessons, Egeshegedra, a new cloudy fermented natural wine that also is very explosive and volatile and can kill. Someone from 3 miles away. with a
Not
straight
unlike
shot.
these two fellows in front of the microphone, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't know what you're saying. But this is what my student said. Terrace, delegate, self-imposed, shoot, after-school program, lead singer, teleprompter, voice actor, quickly, environmentally conscious influencer, rebellious researcher, not obvious, archaeologist, environmentalist, effortless, international correspondent, in the spotlight, stepped out of his comfort zone, diverse, cut the video, put it in his own voice, precision, soldering iron, clothespin, effortlessly, tacky, classy, self-awareness, cheap humor. There's a very fine line. Vitriolic and acerbic.
Pick one word.
Precision.
I picked soldering iron.
Solder. I knew you were gonna like that one.
Where does that fit in that conversation?
Do you know what a soldering iron is?
Yes,
Of course you do. You invented soldering
Yeah,
irons.
but why are you? That's just very out of place. What was? Do you remember the context?
Yeah, completely. It was. She works for a studio that teaches kids how to build and construct things, and they were soldering technological parts together. And soldering irons are kind of crazy,
You
actually.
didn't say soldering. I think it's pronounced solder.
All right. Well, probably is.
I mean, I don't know.
You're the solderer. I'm just
yeah.
a fucking solder. Excuse me. I'm a solderer.
Yeah, it's a PG, family friendly. Kid show. It's a kid show.
Kids show. Kids show. Oh, this is actually. I wanted to read this for you today.
When you upload your videos to YouTube, do you say they're written for children? Probably not. You're cursing.
Yeah, I say
Probably
I
murky
say that
waters
now.
to get into. Okay.
What do you think about this? Here's a little passage. When we least expect it, often comes the opportunity to do something truly fantastic. For these are the moments when we are at our most relaxed, when we least expect it. Even in the awkward occasion of recognition fatigue. The floorboards croaked and groaned as our young protagonist got out of bed in his tiny box of a room he was renting on the Kirautsa. It was only 4 a.m. and the music outside was making such a goddamn racket. It wasn't the first time, and you could bet your bottom dollar that it would not be the last. He sighed, stretched his arms to the sky, and shuffling through a maze of dirty clothes, made his way to the bathroom. The apartment was hardly what had been advertised, but it was a room, and that would have to do for now. Our protagonist worked in the events world, but work had all dried up because of the redacted. I picked my head up from the page. It must have been written by some sort of manuscript, written by this author. What was his name? Finnerty James. He was writing from a perspective some good deal away in the past. And here I was reading what he had written, some 300 years in the future. Where was the romance? Where was the passion? Why did we stop seizing our opportunity?
This is your latest notebook, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is this your soiree into, or is this one of your soirees into this concept that we were talking? Or you talked to me about?
Yeah, that was. I think that was like a prompt for something. I don't even remember when I wrote that, but
Redacted. I love the word redacted.
I'm trying to figure out ways to get into stories, methods of entering into a world that are sort of unconventional. So you're not just saying once upon a time this happened. It's more like
I like the protagonist, our protagonist. But wait, what happened? So the guy who was in the small flat in Budapest, was that the story?
basically, I think it was this guy discovering a manuscript of a guy who lived in Budapest, and he's 300 years in the future, and he finds this like manuscript of someone that was writing, and he's writing about his time in the Kirautsa. Mm-hmm. And so that's like the loop back into the past is like.
And where is this 300 years in the future today, or 300 years in the future from today? So like 2321 is when this person's reading it?
It's just 300 years after when it was written.
Right.
I'm not sure when it was.
Oh, okay. But was 300 years ago, was Kirautsa bumping?
But maybe it's 2321.
Right. So that's what I mean. So that's kind of what I'm asking. But okay.
I don't know. Can I read you one more thing?
Please.
All right. This is a poem that I wrote the other day. They watch over you, middle of the night, midst of the day, during morning after you wake up, brushing teeth, spitting blood, in the shower, on the toilet, eating breakfast, trudging through the snow. On the way to the train, head pounds in pain. They watch over you. They. Who? Who are they? They are those who watch over you. At lunch, at work, at anywhere or any time, in every living moment, eyes shut or closed, or in between, during dreams, they watch over you. Watching and watching over are two very different things. Perhaps I should be a bit more forgiving, for I can certainly admit it is not always so obvious at first glance. Allow me but a moment to explain. To watch is to gaze, stupidly, as if into the void. To watch is to avoid. To watch is to waste time, voyeuristically, without purpose, perhaps a bit cynically, yes, but cynicism is always true. Otherwise, it would just be bullshit. But I'm not a cynic. And I didn't say watching anyway. I said watching over. They watch over. They protect, they lead, they guide, they heal, they teach, they survive, they instruct. They are always there for you. If not here on earth, then up in the sky. For they must be above if they watch over. And they do. I know it. How? Because I'm one of them. I watch over you. Yes, you. And I apologize for my rude behavior ahead of time. I watch over because I care. I can only hope that once in a while you'll look up and say hello. Sincerely, nobody in particular.
Oh, dude, that was really good. That was really cool. I like that a lot.
What does it mean?
But you wrote that, right?
Yeah.
That was really cool. Really fun. Nice. Congrats. That was cool. Is it a poem or is it just like it's kind of like a poem? It's kind of like
I don't know.
Short story. It's really cool. I mean, I don't know. I was thinking sort of something else at the beginning. I mean, I have my own, I like what the concept is. It's like there's some kind of higher power. There's something that's always there in life that is, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're hungover, when you're on the train, like there's always some like essence that is like critiquing you, and it's in your own head most of the time. But everything's in your own head. Like even as you judge me, I'm like processing your judgment based on your like facial expressions, or like I'm reading comments of other people, hearing what they have to say. Like I'm processing it myself. So it's always me. I've constructed that little entity that is watching over me.
Uh-huh.
And like where that comes from, like what feeds that entity in my mind is from everything, from other people, but it's also just from like nature, from like when I spit blood, like that's me that's some entity telling me, hey, you probably brushed your teeth too bad. Like it's watching over me. Like just the rules of nature are watching over me all the time. And when it's a person, it's like even more powerful.
So what you're saying is that basically we construct in our own experiences in life this entity that is watching over you, whether you believe that to be God or like an ancestor or some sort of like spaghetti monster flying in the sky, whatever it is, that is like a self-construct that we have from our lived experience created, that is this idea of something watching over us.
I think it's like how humans like develop to be good at stuff. It's like how we progress and become better. For me, it's like nature, like the rules of nature are just like rational behavior kind of is what it's like part of what it is. And like
I think also what one thing that was compelling for me when I was starting to write this was this idea, like I just started to write and it came out like why they watch over you. That was the beginning.
Yeah.
And then like I was thinking, well, what does it mean to watch and watch over? What's the difference between that? Because to watch and watch like over gives it like a different connotation. It's almost like we have these verbs in English that I've realized now from like learning English. I mean, teaching English and learning Hungarian. We have these verbs that are really two words together, but they can't really be separated. So like they are their own word. Do you know what I mean? Like watch over might as well be written as one word. Like in Hungarian, it would be watch over izni or something. And like watch izni, watch over izni. And they would just put it together as one word, but we separate them as two words, but they really are
have a different semantic meaning.
One verb.
That's fascinating. I mean, that to me was just like a really playful aspect of the poem, because like it was all about the watch over thing. And that when you started breaking out into that little talking about what is watching, like what is that? I just loved that little aspect. It brought really like a lot of levity and made it a really fun thing to experience. That was great. You should publish it, dude.
Thanks. What about this, by the way? This cover, Dali.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Oh, so how about this? You want to know what the title of this painting is? In Hungarian, Álom, amelyet egy másodperccel ébredés előtt egy mély gránátálma körüli rüté okozott.
I can only hear Hungarian. I cannot understand it.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to understand that either. Salvador Dali, dream caused by the flight of a bee around the pomegranate a second before waking. So I think the insinuation here is that there was a bee flying around a pomegranate that like subconsciously gave him this as his dream. Sounds like he might have just taken a lot of drugs.
I think he's just messing with people, dude. Honestly, he's just like taking it to the extreme, which I love. But I mean, he's a maniac, dude.
Absolute maniac. I love sitting here talking with you, Tom. It's great to have two microphones.
No, it's been a joy, dude. This has been really cool. I would love to. You should have one of these every week. That was cool. You should make it. I know you can make a book called Talking with Willie, like the products of Talking with Willie or something. That was really cool. When did you write it? How long were you working on it?
I just wrote it yesterday. I just sat down. I wrote it yesterday, and then I looked at it today, and I crossed out a bunch. I had this whole part here where I said, I crossed this all out. It was like they watch. Okay, like after the first opening bit, closed in between during dreams, they watch over you, and then I said, but you may want to know: do they do anything else, or do they only watch? I didn't say they watch. How thick are you? No, not you. Okay, yes, you. I really hope you have been paying attention, because I'm getting a bit suspicious that, I don't know, some stupid shit. I was just like, I feel like it's too much internal monologue.
Yeah, that was, but I liked the path of what it was. It was cool. And you should make it like an audio thing, because it was cool to listen to.
Nice. All right, so do you have any abiding thoughts? We read this story of the cat and the mouse. We read The Lost Rider in November, Ariendre. We read some Siddhartha. We read something from my crazy notebook. And what did you think? What do you have? Any last thoughts?
I mean, I've always wanted to read some grim story tales. That was really fun. Story tales. Loved that. I loved that I got to read a little bit of Siddhartha.
Do you like listening to these types of stories? Do you think that they're instructive? These fairy tales, these myths, these legends,
thought-provoking. I think we've said that a couple times already today. I think that's a lot of what you can ask for whenever you're consuming anything. When you were saying what is watching, what did you say? It's gazing, and it's
avoiding, staring into the void,
avoiding. Yeah, so like that can happen a lot with. That can be nice. To watch something for the intention to just like empty out. But I think all of the things we've read today have been thought-provoking. And
is that important, to be provoked in your thoughts?
There's a place for everything and everyone and every thought in the world. So like sometimes you want to be thought-provoked. Sometimes you don't want to be challenged in your brain. You just need some help to be stable. So in that time in your life, you probably just want to watch and gaze into the void, and you just build some stability in your brain. But there are also times when it's really important. Challenge yourself.
Nice. I like that. All right. Well, as we head into the winter period here, I challenge everyone to challenge themselves, because I think that that's the most important thing that we can do as human beings. You once told me, Tom, about the flow state with Csikszentmihalyi, whatever the hell his name is. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And I think that is one of the main things, is when you start to feel comfortable you should bounce out of that comfort zone and look for a challenge anew. And then eventually you reach the flow state, and that means that it's time to challenge yourself again. Or am I misquoting that?
Deepen your challenge. If you're comfortable in the task that you're doing, find a way to make it harder.
So challenge yourself, take opportunities, take some risks, do something spirited.
Explode some wine bottles.
Explode some wine bottles.
Preferably not in a nice podcast studio, but hey, sometimes you can't avoid it.
Sometimes you can't avoid it. Sometimes it's actually encouraged by the producer.
Yeah, that was encouraged. We will have to add that disclaimer.
There's your liability,
The
Tom.
first one. The second one, maybe not.
There's your liability. The guilty conscience is absolved. Yoe Sakat, Yoe State, au revoir, Shabbat Shalom, Egeshegadra, and we'll see you soon.
Hasta luego. Much love. actually. It's with the shot.
Nice.
Yeah, it's cool. You also do that sometimes? That's a cool shot as well, yeah.
The studio's really starting to look good now with all these paintings.
Yeah, it's looking
That's
balling out.
to it.
Yeah. Balling out. Yeah, I think I might have to, if I leave here and go to a larger place, I think it'll be up.
Are you thinking about that?
I've been thinking about it. Yeah.
To where?
Is this yours? That one here. Something larger.
This is mine, but I left it for Rich. Just leave it here. What about this giant book of Hungarian stuff? I left that for Ray also.
Okay, cool. Willie, how do you travel around with books like this? Willie's a brick. Hey, Ray, I brought you a brick. It's got pages.
I love it. It makes the place more international.
Yeah. Definitely. Top of book.
You're gonna leave a musty natural wine
Oh, no worries.
smell here.
Where'd you find these? Where'd you put them? Anywhere?
Anyway.
Rolling Stone.
What's the proper way to open those bottles of wine?
I think maybe, I opened it kind of quickly. I think maybe you should crack it.
You should do it above the sink.
Above the sink.
That's the technique.
I thought did you see the first one explode?
Yeah, but I thought that it's gonna be just a little bit and I can wipe it off, I didn't expect it that it's gonna be pumping. But it's still better to do it here instead of between the cameras and all the expensive equipment.
At least the first time you got it on camera, so.
Cool. Wow.
So I think I'm not gonna see you for another month.
Oh yeah,
Thanks for a great fall.
he's going for a vacation.
Have a safe place trip and all that stuff. I might hit you up and somebody
There wasn't.
bring you a gift
Right
back or
on the
something.
podcast, for sure. Any of the
Yeah, tools.
Malibu
Yeah.
360.
Actually, that's one thing I can think of right off, but it's a little small thing.
Yeah, anything. I'm not gonna bring that many things back either, so.
Okay.
Just the suit. Just the
I
suit.
got this one thing at the border. I've been waiting like a month and a half.
The Jack 360, what is it called? Listen to this name,
it's called Cow Digit Thunderbolt for hub.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't know if they have more. Maybe they have more.
I thought
No.
I thought it was more impressive.
More impressive.
I told them, yeah, laughing. I'm like,
Sounds good.
Maybe I'll
Yeah, so there you go. Clean up that. Yeah, clean
no,
up.
don't worry about it. Don't worry.
Thank you, Ray.
No worries, brother. No worries.
I'm also going to America now
Oh,
for
you are?
a week, and then
Oh,
Dublin
okay.
for a week, but then I'll be back.
In Dublin?
Yeah, I'll tell you all about it. Since I need to go there for work,
Wow.
so we'll see.
Are you also
Dublin
leaving?
for work?
No.
Like,
Somebody has to
but
take
you
care of
should-
that.
But we're gonna talk about this at dinner.
Somebody has to
No.
stay with the home zoo.
You should come. Yeah, we have a home zoo.
You know what?
We have a home zoo now. We have a
Oh,
dog
okay.
and 2
I thought you
cats.
were going to since they had one in Dublin.
Yeah, you're welcome to come to dinner if you want. Alright, cool, no worries.
Yeah, thank you. Very cool. Yeah, so, yeah, be safe, man. Be safe. Listen, hey, Mom and everybody.
Thank you so much.
Ray, as always, love to be here. I'll text you when I'm coming to pick up that painting.
Okay. I'll send actually, I'll have her, message you on.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
You should tell Ray about your idea about the live streaming computer program.
Yeah, I do want to do some kind of. That's true.
That's such a good idea.
Part of mentoring a friend of mine, trying to mentor a friend of mine, trying to do some coding.
Okay.
And I was talking to another friend of mine at work, and we were just thinking that maybe we should start doing some kind of live stream hackathon, basically, or we code something together. We'll figure out what it's gonna be. It probably will start very, very low key, but maybe we might need something like higher production. Could be kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. Okay, so that could be fun to talk about.
Cool, man. Very cool.
Hey, shoot, Willie, you got you go to your language class like this?
Yeah.
What do your students say?
She said Fireman. Yeah, it was like a kind of formal dress. You didn't have to wear a suit, but I felt good in the suit. Looked good.
You always look in a suit.
Yeah,
I think we're made to wear suits more often.
especially with the t-shirt. Then you really
Yeah, with the t-shirt, then you can dress up, down, whatever you want.
see you soon. I think.